Welcome back to the channel. This is Babylon's Fall, and I'm your host, Greg Mailer. Those of you who've been following for a little bit, I wrote a book, and it's almost finished. I call it John and the Final Revelation. I believe that I have a message that is relevant for today, and that could help a lot of us sort of navigate all of the chaos with which I believe that the Johannine writings brought to the world. The John's Gospel, his epistles, and Revelation. But what's interesting is that since it's the same author who wrote all of them, if you study them very closely, you can unlock what I'm basically trying to unlock here. And that is a system that ends up contradicting itself and essentially, as we will bring about, we will show a lot of contradictions, a lot of errors, and a lot of reasons why it should never have made it into the canon to begin with. And I already have begun to unpack that a little bit last section, where what I believe showed was undeniable proof of a contradiction between John 1:3 and Revelation 3:14. Anyhow, that's what we do here at this channel. We try to expose this corruption, and we welcome criticism. If you don't agree with what I say, and then please put it in the comment section. I would love to see what your thoughts are. I will also be creating a community pretty soon and get that ready on Facebook where you can also interact. Without further ado, though, let's go ahead and hop right into the to the next section of the commentary. All right, so we ended off right here in 4b, and I'll go ahead and read it. It says, "And the life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it." Now, this section, there's not a whole lot going on here, but there's a couple of points that I do want to make. Number one, and the life was the light of men. Something Jesus says in 8:12, I think, helps us understand this. He says, "I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life." So Jesus is like this lantern in the darkness. And if we're following him, we're going to be able to see. And generally, that's what we all believe already. And all the material that came prior to 90 plus AD, all the stuff that Paul wrote, and all of the other epistle writers already realized this. And so it's not like John is bringing out anything new here. He's just saying it in a different way. He's using different language, very artistic language, using light and life and things like that. So in the next clause, though, he talks about the darkness, and he says that the darkness wasn't able to comprehend it. This word "comprehend" is katalevon in the Greek, katalevon, and it has a double meaning. If you go look it up, it's to physically overcome or extinguish, and then secondly, to mentally grasp or comprehend. So I believe John is kind of using that as a double meaning to say that the darkness could not physically overcome the light, nor could it comprehend it. And I do agree with that, because Paul had said somewhere in 1 Corinthians that had the rulers of this world known who he was, they never would have crucified him. And so there's nothing, I don't object to that at all. And so anyway, that's kind of all my thoughts are on those two little parts. So let's go ahead and move on to the next section, why don't we? In this section, we're going to move on to being introduced for the first time to John the Baptist. So let me go ahead and read it. It says, "There was a man sent from God whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but he was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world." Now, in this section, it essentially is saying that John was sent to bear witness of the light, but he wasn't the light he basically wants to say that he wasn't the light, but he was a witness of that light. Now, the Gospel of John over 40 times also says that Jesus was sent. And over then John 17:23, it says, this is towards the end of his prayer, one of the last things he says in the Gospel. in his final prayer right before he's arrested. He says, Jesus is praying to the Father, and he says, that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them just as you have loved me, or as you have loved me. And so, yes, 40 times, John the Baptist was sent by God, and so was Jesus. I point that out first. However, there's a difference, obviously. John is a witness of the light, and Jesus is the light. And that's basically all he's trying to say here. Now, there's one other interesting point in verse 9, though. He says, that was the true light which gives light to every man coming into the world. So there's this idea that this light is given to everyone, right? No one, it's almost like a universal light that shines upon everyone. I point that out here. And later on in the Gospels, there are and other things that Jesus said that back that up. That the idea that there's a universal light that basically this, it's like the sun. The sun is going to hit everything, and there's not going to, no person's going to go be able to hide from that light. And so later on in the Gospel, if you go look at 7:17, Jesus says, "If anyone wills to do His will, His meaning God's will, he shall know concerning the doctrine, whether it is from God or whether I, that is Jesus, speak of my own authority." And what I say that this says is it shows a universal volition. It's like if anyone wants to, they can find out whether this is just, you know, from God or from Jesus. I mean, they can find out basically find out the truth. And he uses a universal appeal here. Anyone, if anyone wills. Okay, 12:32. And I, that is Jesus, if Jesus, I, am lifted up from the earth, will draw all to myself. Now, peoples is an added word in there, but he'll draw all to himself. That's a universal pull, universal draw. In other words, when Jesus is lifted up on that cross, he's going to draw all to himself. That's a universal appeal. In 12:46, a little bit later, he says, I have come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness. So once again, whoever. The light shines on everyone. And Jesus backs that up very clearly here with three different things he says. Yet I will say that even though this prologue paints, I'm going to just read this paragraph here. Yet while the prologue paints the light as if it were a universal gift to every human being, the narrative will later pivot over to explain the deterministic mechanisms that invisibly govern the entire process, which our Augustinian and Reformed friends know all about. But we will try not to get too far ahead of ourselves. In other words, later on, even though this sounds very, whosoever believes, John 3:16, that anyone that believes in him shall not perish. There's this universal appeal. However, if you look at other things that Jesus said, which we'll get into later, you'll see these deterministic streams pulling all the shots. For example, he'll say, no one can come to me unless the Father draws them, or things like that. Or the Spirit gives birth to whomever he wills, kind of like an arbitrary wind in chapter 3. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that even though John does appeal to a sort of a universal light given to everyone, when you look a little bit later on, and Jesus kind of confirms it here in these couple sayings, a little later on, we'll get some contradiction to that. We'll get some tension to those things. And with that, I will go ahead and stop the video there. However, because I want to make these kind of short, so we can kind of get these in bite-sized pieces. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this content. And this is a passion project of mine. I just want others to sort of be able to see these things. I think that if you keep with me and you keep watching the commentary as I go through the book, or if you even read the book, it's for free there. Go ahead and download it and read it. I think you'll see a view that can capture something you've never seen before, and something that has power in this day and age. And it's a message for this generation, one that's 2,000 years removed from the events, still waiting for the return of Christ. I believe I have an answer, a sufficient, satisfying, intellectual answer for why that took place. And it has to do with this Johannine literature that the church accepted as the canon. And with that said, I will leave you with a new song. If you like this music, you can find it on suno.com under the moniker Babylon's Fall. I also have some on the YouTube channel as well. And this song, I'll leave you with it. It's a new one that I've added. Without further ado, God bless. I'll see you next time.